David Hall. Thanks for tuning into this video about the chromatic scale. Now, chromatic means colourful. So the chromatic scale is our colourful scale. And by that we mean we play every colour, every possible note. So we're going to move up in semitones. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G. We play every note that we can on the piano until we've completed the octave. That results in a scale of 13 notes, 12 different notes, plus one at the top. Now there's a couple of different ways to write the chromatic scale, and the first one I'm going to introduce you to is sometimes called the harmonic chromatic scale. What you do, you write your starting note once, then you write the perfect fifth once. So if you're in C major, you'd write the C, you'd write the G, and then you write the top note once. Every other note occurs twice. You end up with 1, 2, 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 6, 6, 7, 7, 8. I'll show you that in C major. So I've drawn the tonic, I've drawn the dominant, note number 5, and the tonic once. Every other note occurs twice. In E major, it looks like this. Tonic and dominant occurring once, every other note twice. You end up with a real mix of sharps and flats, which is fine. That's one way to write the chromatic scale. Another way is sometimes called the melodic chromatic scale. You draw note number 1 and 3 and 7, just the ones. On the way up, then on the way down, note number 4 occurs once, and everything else occurs twice. That's not quite so easy to remember, but just take a look at this top line. Think about D major scale. 3 and 7 are the notes that you would sharpen. Now look at the bottom line. Think about F major scale. 4 is the note that you would flatten. So think of a scale going up with 2 sharps and a scale going down with 1 flat, and that might help you remember this little rule for the melodic minor scale. You end up with 1, 2, 2, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6, 6, 7, 1, 1, 7, 7, 6, 6, 5, 5, 4, 3, 3, 2, 2, 1. And here it is drawn starting on an F. You can see the 3, the 7, the 4 drawn once and every other note drawn twice. Now composers don't always stick to those rules. They're not really rules, they're just guidelines. But one rule they do stick to is that we never do 3 notes of the same letter name. So you wouldn't get D flat, D natural and D sharp in the same chromatic scale. As long as you avoid that, you're probably okay. I rather like the first one I talked about, the harmonic chromatic scale. That's a nice way to structure your chromatic scale. Now another context where you might hear the word chromatic is the idea of a chromatic chord or chromaticism within a piece of music. That means you're playing along quite happily in a major key or a minor key, and suddenly you see a chord that doesn't seem to fit, that doesn't seem to belong. It has sharps and flats sometimes. So here we're in C major, suddenly there's a chord with sharps and flats. That's out of key. We call that a chromatic chord. Now for grade 5 theory, you don't need to name it, you don't need to know much about it at all, other than it is a chromatic chord. It doesn't mean we've changed key because it's fleeting, it goes back to C major. Here's another example of a chord that is chromatic. And here's an example of 2 chords that are highly chromatic in the context of C major. You can use chromatic chords in any key. What it means is you've suddenly got a note that's not within the key. That's all. And that's an example of chromaticism.
At the piano, find any 4-note chord that you like. F, B, E, A, reading from the bottom, works well. Move the whole chord up or down a semitone several times.
If you take a look at chapter 24 of this book, there's more to playing the piano by David Hall, and you'll see some more examples of chromatic chords. There's some mention of chromatic passing notes and just generally chromaticism in context. Now the activity at the piano today is to take any chord let's start with A minor and move it up or down a semitone. So let's go down, every note is going to go down a semitone. So the A goes down to there, the C to there, the E to there. We end up with another minor chord that's a semitone lower. Or we could go up, or we could go on a little journey. Now the chord I've suggested in the book goes F, B, E, A. Rather more exotic chord. If I move that by semitone. You could take, one that I quite like is the dominant 7th chord. So F, A, E flat. That's one you might hear quite often. So do try this activity. It's good finger work, and it's good for the brain, and it's something that you might be able to use in the context of your improvisations.